Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. If you've watched my last Seiko review, you'll know that I haven't been a huge fan of Seiko sports watches over the last 3 to 4 years, and I've had mixed experiences with Seiko quality control in recent times. But Seiko is undoubtedly one of the most popular watch brands in the affordable watch category, and I get a lot of requests to review Seiko sports watches. I figured I'd put some of my own money into buying and reviewing one, but I wasn't sure which one I wanted to check out first. The Tuna case has always stuck out like a sore thumb to me, and I could never appreciate the design or the size of the original watches. But over the last few months, the Tuna design has been growing on me, and I've grown to appreciate the design for its heritage and the fact that it's nearly indestructible. And with Seiko offering this design in a more modest size with the latest Street series, I thought this would be a great one to check out. It has a very definitive Seiko design identity, and this colorway caught my attention immediately. This is the SRPF81 or SBDY073, or the blue and beige Street series with a cool bezel if you don't feel like trying to remember a string of random characters and numbers. I bought this watch from Japan the day it was released, but I'm not entirely sure if this is a JDM only watch since they seem to be available in the UK, Canada and Australia too. So hopefully we'll see them in the US shortly. If not, you can always use your favorite JDM watch retail website. I bought this one from Japan Select and had a quick and smooth transaction. I paid $560 shipped to the US. Let's check it out. I measured the case to be 43 millimeters in diameter with a 38 millimeter bezel diameter, 43.5 millimeters from lug to lug and 12.75 millimeters in height. The case is made entirely of stainless steel, unlike the titanium and ceramic combo on the originals. The shroud is also made of steel here, and this is not a monoblock case design like on the original. But where aesthetics are concerned, this watch looks like it has all the ingredients to give you an excellent Tuna design experience. The shroud is primarily brushed with two polished top surfaces where the shroud is cut out to expose the bezel grip. The shroud is brushed and attached to the case by means of 4 bolts. An interesting note is that the shroud actually tapers from 43 millimeters at the base to 41 millimeters at the top. This entire package feels indestructible, and this watch just begs to be thrown around and used without worry. An excellent example of a true tool watch case. A pair of extremely short and pudgy lugs sneak out of this monstrous case like a fat cat with tiny feet, but like any cat, these paws mean serious business, with extremely useful drill-through lugs and an appropriate lug width of 20 millimeters. They made drill-through lug holes work on a lug design that most brands wouldn't bother with. Much respect. Tucked away safely behind the comfort and security of the stainless steel shroud is a 120-click unidirectional bezel that has excellent grip. The bezel teeth are deep and offer excellent amount of friction, which is crucial to this design since the bezel can only be operated from exactly half of its circumference. The bezel insert is likely the star of the show with this watch and has a beige gold 20-minute diver countdown section, and the rest is a deep blue color. The color of the text is the inverse of the bezel sections, and the insert has a satin finish because of the fine circular ridges running along the bezel. The colors look incredible and the finishing is excellent too. The bezel feels different from any other diver I own and has an almost elastic-like action with soft clicks that lack solid tactile feedback. But the clicks are spot on and there's no backplay or misalignment. Don't worry, I'm as shocked as you are. The bezel also houses a flat hardlex glass, which is slightly disappointing for the $550 price tag, but the legibility is excellent, so at least there's that. You have a relatively small 5.5mm screw-down crown at the 330 position that only slightly protrudes out of the shroud, but is easy to grip and unscrew since it's exposed at the bottom. The crown feels okay, but the crown often needs to be back-turned to make sure that the threads mate correctly before screwing it down. This was also normal operating experience with my $3,500 Ming 1801, so I won't hold this against Seiko. Flipping it over, you have a screw-down case back, which is unlike the original monoblock cases. As much as I love the idea of a monoblock case design, I prefer having a screw-down case back, since the ability to service one of these is significantly easier, cheaper, and less likely to mess up. This watch is rated for up to 200 meters of water resistance. The bezel's color palette extends to the dial as well and combines a subtle sunburst blue dial with beige printed elements and Lume material. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting much where dial quality control was concerned after my disappointing encounter with the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time. But this dial is excellent and better than most $500 watches that I've reviewed. There's the sloped blue chapter ring that has beige printed elements with large rectangular markers for the hour indices and slimmer ticks for the minute markers. If you're looking to see if it's properly aligned, you might notice a small misalignment near some of the indices, but this is no different from the majority of other watches I review in this price range, so I won't hold it against Seiko. I'd consider this to be 90% there, and that is a pleasant surprise. You then have large rectangular hour indices that are made of polished stainless steel, generously filled with an off-white Lume material and applied onto the dial. The finishing on these is excellent. The 12 o'clock index is a large triangle to help orient the watch. Additionally, all four of the primary indices have protruding steel sections that point towards the center of the dial, like crosshairs. I'm genuinely impressed by the finish here, and I think Seiko did a great job on this watch. There are some small particles around, but nothing that can be found without hunting for it with a macro lens. An interesting design element is the text printed near the 6 o'clock index. Made in Japan is printed offset from the center, and the movement and identifier and some other stuff that I'm not Seiko smart enough to recognize. I think they could have figured out a slightly more compact and subtle way to convey this information, but it isn't distracting, so I'll let it slide. The date window is between the 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock hour indices, and while I don't like asymmetric date windows, this one is very well executed. The hour indices maintain overall dial symmetry, and the color match date wheel allows the window to stay mostly hidden. Great job here, and the finishing around the date window is excellent too. The brand's name is printed under the 12 o'clock index and the Prospex logo and some other text above the 6 o'clock. Very clean printing quality, and the beige colors are perfectly matched with the other loomed elements. You then have a brushed stainless steel handset with an overall rectangular design for the hour and minute hands. These hands are also generously filled with Lume material, and they appear to be clean. The proportions are great, and the minute hand extends all the way to the end of the hour markers and close to the outer minute track. The seconds hand is well proportioned, well finished, and plenty legible too. It has a large triangular loomed element and a tip that almost touches the outer chapter ring. Overall, this dial is very easy to read and looks excellent too, so no complaints from me here. Typically, watches with faux patina or colored indices have poorer lume, but you don't need to be worried about this one, and this watch lives up to Seiko's reputation of having some of the best lume in the business. Only the circular pip at the 12 o'clock is loomed on the bezel, but I'm completely fine with this because of how well executed the bezel colors and finish are. All the hour indices are very generously loomed, both because Seiko's Lume Bright is just superior to most brands and because of how large these indices are. The hands are well loomed too, with lots of surface area and a generous application. The lume triangular element on the seconds hand is impressively loomed too. Overall, this watch scores 100% where lume is concerned. You can pick this watch up in the middle of the night and it will most certainly be legible. This watch uses a Seiko 4R35 movement, which I believe is the in-house label for the NH35 movement. This movement is pretty common in the microbrand universe and usually found on more affordable watches well within the sub $500 category. But the 4R35 appears to be more warmly welcomed within the Seiko enthusiast community in watches above $500 and even closer to $1,000 too. On my time grapher, I observed roughly plus 7 seconds per day in the dial up position and plus 5 seconds per day in the crown up position. I've never really considered the Tuna lineup for myself before because the case sizes were way too big for my wrist, being anywhere between 47mm and 49mm in diameter. But the 43mm diameter and 43.5mm lug-to-lug width on this one work great on my 6¼ inch wrist, and I'm glad they're now making these smaller sized cases. The overall height of 12.75mm is another blessing too. Between the flat case back and short but angled lugs, it's fairly well balanced on the wrist, and I've been wearing this watch non-stop for the last week. I wasn't a huge fan of the silicone strap that it came with. The quality of the strap is great and the hardware is excellent too, but it's just too long and you end up with tons of strap just hanging around. It was a bit too flexible as well, which made the case feel less balanced overall. I swapped that out immediately for this khaki sailcloth strap from Watch Bandit, and I've been enjoying the muted colors across the watch and the strap. To wrap this up quickly, I love this watch and I highly recommend it at around $560 or lower. I initially bought this watch only to review and sell once I was done, but I think I'll be keeping this one in my collection for a few months at least. I love the build quality, the design, and even the finishing. The Seiko 4R35 movement and the Hardlex crystal might be a turn-off for some, and I think that's reasonable. But if you've got small wrists and are looking for a seriously robust feeling dive watch that has great looks and its own design heritage, this one is worth checking out. And if you happen to win the Seiko Quality Control Lottery like I did, you're going to love this ownership experience as well. As always, thanks for watching and don't forget to read my other reviews in the link below.